What if I told you that the person sitting in your building's lobby right now, the one you walk past every single day without a second glance, could save your entire life tomorrow? This is the true story of a billionaire who lost everything in one night, and the 19-year-old boy in a hoodie who became his only hope. A boy the world had made invisible. By the end of this story, you'll never look at anyone the same way again. You'll understand why the most powerful miracles don't come from the people you expect. And you might just realize that someone in your life right now is your miracle. You just haven't seen them yet. This is about the night when a desperate CEO and a poor cleaner's son met at rock bottom. And what happened next will restore your faith in humanity. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment where you're watching from and your view on the story. You know, sometimes I wonder if we ever really see the people around us. I mean, truly see them. Let me tell you a story that will change the way you look at everyone you meet. This is about a powerful man who lost everything in one terrible night, and the young man who saved him. A young man nobody even knew existed. This happened in London, in one of those tall glass buildings that touch the sky. The kind of building where important people make important decisions. On the 38th floor, there was a man named James Wellington. If you saw him on the street, you'd know he was successful. Expensive suit, confident walk, the kind of person who always seemed to have all the answers. James was the boss of a company called Sterling Solutions. For 15 years, he built this company with his own hands, working late nights, missing birthdays, sacrificing everything. And finally, after all those years, he was about to sign the biggest deal of his life. Tomorrow morning, everything would change. His company would be worth billions. All his dreams were about to come true. But this particular Tuesday night, something went terribly wrong. It started at 8:30 in the evening. James was alone in his office, preparing for tomorrow's big meeting. His computer screen suddenly flickered. Just once. Then a red message appeared in the corner. Then another. And another. Within minutes, every screen in his office was flashing red warnings. James felt his heart start to pound. He clicked on the warnings, trying to understand what was happening. But it was like watching a terrible accident in slow motion. His company's entire computer system was crashing. All the customer information, all the financial records, everything that made his company valuable was disappearing right in front of his eyes. Someone was attacking them, destroying everything from the inside. James grabbed his phone with shaking hands. He called his technology team. No answer. He called his security experts. Nobody picked up. Everyone had gone home hours ago. They had no idea their company was dying up here on the 38th floor. He slammed his hand on the desk, breathing hard. "This cannot be happening," he whispered to the empty room. "Not now. Not when I'm this close." Outside his huge windows, London glowed with lights. People down there were having dinner, laughing with friends, going to movies. They had no idea that up here, a man's entire life was falling apart. The city doesn't stop for anyone, James thought bitterly. It just keeps moving whether you're winning or losing. He'd sent his whole team home earlier. Now he wished anyone was here with him. The silence in that huge office felt like it was crushing him. Just him and those flashing red screens showing him everything he was about to lose. That's when he heard something. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, steady footsteps. James looked up, confused. Who could possibly be here at this hour? A woman appeared at his door. She was wearing a simple blue cleaning uniform, pushing a cart with cleaning supplies. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she looked tired, like someone who'd been working all day. She seemed to be in her 50s, with kind eyes that went wide when she saw him sitting there in the dark. "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir," she said softly, her voice gentle. "I didn't know anyone was still here. I'll come back later." James let out a bitter laugh. "Don't worry. You're not interrupting anything. Just watching my life get destroyed, that's all." Most people would have apologized and left quickly. But this woman didn't. She hesitated at the door, looking at him with concern. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked. "All right." James shook his head. "Everything I've built for 15 years just got destroyed. So no, I'm not all right." The woman took a small step into the room. She glanced at the screens behind him, and something changed in her face. Not fear. Something else. Recognition. "Excuse me, sir," she said quietly, "but I think my son might be able to help you." James turned to look at her, surprised. "Your son? What do you mean?" "My son, Daniel," she continued. "He's very good with computers. Very good. He's waiting for me downstairs right now. If you'd like, I could ask him to come up and take a look. James stared at this cleaning woman offering help from her son. It seemed impossible. Crazy even. But his engineers were gone. His experts had failed. His company was dying. And honestly, he had nothing left to lose. Sometimes, my friends, when we're desperate, we become willing to trust the most unlikely people. What's your name? James asked. Rose, she replied. Rose Patterson. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. All right, Rose. Please, ask your son to come up. Rose pulled out an old mobile phone and made a quick call. Daniel, can you come up to the 38th floor, love? There's a gentleman here who needs help with his computers. Yes, now. Thank you, darling. She hung up and looked at James. He'll be here in 2 minutes. James didn't know what to expect. But as he sat there in his failing office, surrounded by red warning lights and the ruins of his dreams, he realized something. For the first time in years, he was about to let someone help him. Really help him. And that young man who was about to walk through his door? He was about to change everything. Because sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expect. They're the ones we've never even noticed before. 2 minutes later, a young man walked into James's office, and honestly, he wasn't what James expected at all. Daniel Patterson looked to be about 19 or 20 years old. He was thin, wearing worn jeans and a faded hoodie. His trainers had seen better days. He had his mother's kind eyes, but there was something else there too. Intelligence. Focus. The look of someone who notices everything. Mom says you need help with your computers, Daniel said simply, no nervousness in his voice. James gestured at the chaos on his screens. Someone's attacking my company's system. Everything's crashing. I don't suppose you know anything about that. Daniel walked over to the desk and looked at the screens for just a moment. His eyes moved quickly, taking in all the information. Then he nodded. That's a distributed denial of service attack combined with data extraction, he said calmly. Whoever's doing this knows your system really well. They're not just breaking in from outside. They had help from inside. James felt his jaw drop. How can you possibly know that? Daniel pointed at the screen. See these patterns? The way the attack is moving through your network? That's not random. Someone gave them a map of your system. Someone who works here. Rose stood by the door, watching her son with quiet pride. James looked between them, completely confused. Where did you learn this? James asked. Daniel shrugged. Taught myself, mostly. Been learning since I was 12. Can't afford university, so I use free courses online. Spend most of my time in the library using their computers. Let me tell you something about Daniel Patterson that James didn't know yet. This young man was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But he'd grown up in a small flat in East London with just his mother. His father had left when he was 5. Rose had raised him alone, working 3 jobs sometimes just to keep food on the table. Daniel had always been good with computers. When other kids were playing football, he was taking apart old laptops he found in charity shops, teaching himself how they worked. He dreamed of going to university, studying computer science, maybe getting a good job one day. But dreams cost money, and money was something they never had. So Daniel studied on his own, using library computers, watching every tutorial he could find online. He became incredibly skilled. But he had no credentials, no certificates, no way to prove what he knew. He was just a kid from a poor neighborhood. Nobody important. Nobody anyone would hire. Every night, he'd wait in the lobby of this building while his mom cleaned offices. He'd bring his old laptop and practice coding. Security guards got used to seeing him there. Some even brought him tea sometimes. But to the important people in their expensive suits walking past, he was invisible. Until tonight. Can you help me? James asked, and there was desperation in his voice now. Can you actually fix this? Daniel looked at him steadily. I can try, but I'll need complete access to your system. And sir, I need you to trust me completely. James didn't hesitate. He pulled out his master access card, the one that opened every door and every system in the building. He handed it to this teenager he'd just met. Rose gasped. Sir, are you sure about this? No, James admitted. But I don't have a choice. And something tells me your son knows what he's doing. Daniel took the card. I won't let you down, he said quietly. I promise. For the next 6 hours, something amazing happened in that office. Daniel sat at James's computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard like he was playing a musical instrument. Lines of code filled the screens. His eyes never left the monitor, completely focused on what he was doing. James watched in wonder. This young man who nobody had ever noticed, who waited in lobbies while his mother cleaned, was doing things James's expensive experts couldn't do. Rose brought them tea from the break room. She watched her son work, tears occasionally forming in her eyes. She'd always known Daniel was special. She'd always known he was capable of amazing things. But the world had never given him a chance to show it. Until tonight. Around 2 a.m, Daniel leaned back and let out a long breath. "Mr. Wellington, I've got good news and bad news." "Tell me," James said. "The good news is I've stopped the attack. Your backup systems are safe. I can rebuild everything from there. It'll take a few more hours, but your company will survive." James felt relief wash over him like a wave. "And the bad news?" Daniel's face grew serious. "The attack came from inside your company. Someone who works here gave the attackers access. And sir, they're still in your system. They're still here." The office went very quiet. Rose put her hand over her mouth. James felt his blood run cold. "You're saying someone I work with did this to me?" James asked. "Yes, sir," Daniel replied. "And if we don't find them, they'll just do it again." James stood up and walked to the window. Down below, London was starting to wake up. Early morning traffic was beginning to move. The sun would rise soon. In a few hours, his employees would arrive, and one of them was his enemy. He turned back to Daniel. "Can you find out who it is?" "I think so," Daniel said. "But it'll take time. Maybe a few days." James made a decision right then that would change all their lives. "Then you're hired. Starting now. I'll pay you whatever you need. Just find who did this." Daniel looked at his mother. Rose was crying now, nodding, telling him with her eyes that this was real, this was happening, this was his chance. "I'll find them," Daniel promised. "I'll protect your company." And in that moment, a poor kid from East London became something more. He became hope. The next morning, James called a meeting with all his senior managers. The boardroom filled with confused people in expensive suits, all wondering why they'd been called in so urgently. James stood at the head of the table. Beside him stood Daniel, still in his worn jeans and hoodie, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I want to introduce someone," James began. "Last night, our company was attacked. Someone tried to destroy us from the inside. This young man, Daniel Patterson, he saved us. And starting today, he's going to lead our investigation to find out who did this." You should have seen their faces. Shock. Confusion. Some people looked insulted. Richard Brooks, James's second-in-command, crossed his arms. He was a tall man, always perfectly dressed, always in control. "You're telling us that this boy is going to investigate us? Where are his qualifications?" "His degree." "His qualifications," James said firmly, "are that he saved this company when none of you could. That's all I need to know." Richard's face went red. "This is insane, James. You're putting our entire company's security in the hands of someone we found in the lobby." "This discussion is over," James said coldly. "Daniel has my full authority. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave." He walked out, and Daniel followed, feeling dozens of angry eyes burning into his back. In the hallway, Richard caught up with them. "You're making a huge mistake," he said in a low, threatening voice. "You know nothing about this kid. Nothing about his background. This could destroy everything we've built." James turned slowly. "What could destroy us is not recognizing talent when it saves our lives. Daniel earned this." End of story. Over the next few days, Daniel worked quietly, setting up systems to monitor everyone's computer activity. He was looking for patterns, for signs of who had betrayed James. He barely slept, working through the nights, driven by a need to prove himself. Rose would bring him food, worry clear on her face. "Daniel, love, you need to rest." "I can't, Mum," he'd say. "This is my one chance. I have to get this right." James gave Daniel a small office and a proper computer. For the first time in his life, Daniel had real tools to work with. It felt like a dream, but not everyone was happy about it. People whispered when he walked by. Some were curious about this young genius. Others looked at him with suspicion or resentment. He was different. He didn't belong. Richard Brooks especially seemed to watch Daniel's every move, his expression dark and angry. Then one night, Daniel found something. He was reviewing security logs when he noticed unusual activity. Someone was accessing files they shouldn't have, deleting things, sending encrypted messages to email addresses outside the company. When he traced it back to see who it was, his heart nearly stopped. Richard Brooks, the man who'd questioned him from the beginning. The man who seemed so angry about his presence. He was the traitor. Daniel sat frozen, staring at the evidence on his screen. Richard had been with the company for 10 years. He was James's right-hand man, his friend, and he'd betrayed him. Daniel printed everything and went straight to James's office. It was late evening. Most people had gone home. "Mr. Wellington," Daniel said, his voice shaking slightly. "I found something. You need to see this." James looked at the papers Daniel handed him. As he read, his face went pale. His hands started to shake. "Richard," he whispered. "It was Richard all along." "I'm sorry, sir," Daniel said quietly. "But the evidence is clear. He's been working with a company called Titan Industries. They've been trying to buy you out for years. When you refused, they paid him to destroy you from inside." James slumped in his chair, looking suddenly old. 10 years. I've worked with him for 10 years. How did I not see it? He was good at hiding, Daniel said. But he made mistakes. And I found them. James looked up at Daniel, and there was something like gratitude mixed with pain in his eyes. "What do we do now?" "We set a trap," Daniel said. "We let him think he's safe. Then we catch him in the act." That night, they created fake files full of valuable-looking information. Daniel monitored Richard's computer, waiting to see if he'd take the bait. At 11:45 p.m., Richard logged into the system remotely. Daniel watched as he started downloading the fake files. "He's doing it," Daniel whispered. "He's taking the bait." They called the police. Within an hour, officers arrived at Richard's home. They found him at his computer, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal. Emails showing payments from Titan Industries. Plans to destroy Sterling Solutions. Everything. When they brought Richard into custody, he looked broken. He asked to speak to James one last time. In the police station, with officers present, Richard sat across from James. "I suppose you want to know why," Richard said bitterly. "I trusted you," James said, his voice full of hurt. "We built this company together." "You built it," Richard corrected. "I just worked for you. You got rich while I got a salary. Titan offered me £3 million and a position as director. What would you have done?" "I would have been honest," James said quietly. "Honesty doesn't pay the bills," Richard shot back. "It doesn't take care of a sick wife. It doesn't give your kids a better life." Daniel, who'd been standing quietly in the corner, spoke up. "My mum raised me on nothing. We had less than nothing. But she never betrayed anyone. She worked honest jobs and kept her dignity. Money isn't worth losing yourself." Richard looked at this young man, and for a moment, shame crossed his face. Then he looked away. As they left the police station, James put his hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Thank you," he said simply. "You saved more than my company. You showed me what integrity really looks like." The next 2 weeks were the hardest of James's life. His lawyers gathered all the evidence Daniel had found. They built a case against not just Richard, but against Titan Industries for corporate sabotage. James had a choice to make. He could keep everything quiet, protect Sterling Solutions' reputation, hope nobody ever found out about the betrayal. Or he could tell the truth publicly and risk everything. The night before he had to decide, Daniel and Rose came to his office. Rose had finished her cleaning route, and Daniel had been working late as usual. "Whatever you choose, sir," Daniel said, "we're with you. But I'll tell you what I think. The truth might hurt for a while, but lies hurt forever." James looked at these two people who had walked into his life by chance. A cleaning woman and her son. They'd saved him when he had nothing. They'd shown him what real courage looked like. "You're right," James said. "We tell the truth." The next morning, James called a press conference. The room filled with reporters, cameras, flashing lights. James stood at the microphone with Daniel and Rose beside him. And he told the entire story. The attack. The betrayal. Richard's involvement. Titan Industries' conspiracy to destroy his company. The media went wild. Headlines everywhere. Cleaning woman's son saves billion-pound company. CEO exposes corporate sabotage. Teen genius catches traitor. But something unexpected happened. Instead of running away, customers and investors rallied around Sterling Solutions. People admired James's honesty. They were inspired by Daniel's story. A poor kid who taught himself computers in libraries, who nobody believed in, who saved an entire company. Within days, the story went viral. News programs interviewed Daniel and Rose. People called them heroes. Universities reached out offering Daniel full scholarships. Tech companies wanted to hire him. But Daniel wasn't interested in leaving. He'd found something more valuable than any job offer. He'd found a place where someone believed in him, Richard Brooks was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The investigation into Titan Industries led to multiple arrests. Their reputation was destroyed. Sterling Solutions didn't just survive. It thrived. The company's value tripled. New clients came rushing in. The big deal James had been worried about? It went through even bigger than before. But the most important changes happened quietly, in moments nobody else saw. 3 months after everything settled, James did something special. He renovated an entire floor of the building and created a technology training center. A place where young people from poor backgrounds could learn computer skills for free. He named it the Patterson Learning Center. On opening day, James brought Rose and Daniel to see it. When Rose saw her name on the wall, she broke down crying. "You didn't have to do this," she sobbed. "We were just doing what was right." "Exactly," James said gently. "You were just doing what was right. But nobody ever gave you anything for it. You raised an incredible son while working 3 jobs. You never complained. You never gave up. This center will help other kids like Daniel. Kids who have talent but no opportunity." He turned to Daniel. "And I want you to run it. Teach others what you know. Give them the chance nobody gave you." Daniel looked overwhelmed. "Mr. Wellington, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," James smiled. "And please call me James. We're partners now." That night, after the ceremony, James asked Daniel to take a walk with him. They went up to the roof of the building, where they could see all of London spread out below them. "I want to tell you something," James said. "Before that night when you and your mother walked into my office, I thought I knew what success meant. Money, power, respect. But I was wrong." He looked at Daniel. "You taught me what real success is. It's having people you can trust. It's using what you have to help others. It's seeing the value in people that everyone else overlooks." "I just did what I could," Daniel said quietly. "No," James corrected. "You did what most people wouldn't do. You helped someone who'd never noticed you. You saved someone who'd walked past you 100 times without seeing you. That's not just skill. That's character." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My mom always told me that our circumstances don't define us. Our choices do. She chose to work honest jobs and raise me right, even when it was hard. I just tried to honor that. She raised a good man," James said. "And I'm grateful every day that you both walked into my life." Over the next year, the Patterson Learning Center trained over 200 young people. Many of them got jobs in technology. Some started their own companies. All of them learned that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go. Rose eventually stopped cleaning offices. James offered her a job managing the center with Daniel. She was hesitant at first, but Daniel convinced her. "Mom, you've spent your whole life taking care of other people," he said. "Let someone take care of you for once." So Rose accepted. And every day she'd walk through that center, seeing young people learning and growing, knowing that her son's courage had made it all possible. Daniel became one of the youngest chief technology officers in London. But he never forgot where he came from. He still wore jeans and hoodies. He still treated everyone with respect, from the CEO to the security guards. Because he remembered what it felt like to be invisible. And James? He learned to see people. Really see them. Not their job titles or their clothes or their backgrounds, but who they really were inside. You know what the most beautiful part of this story is? It's not the happy ending, though that's wonderful. It's what happened to everyone who heard about it. After the news spread, something changed in that building. In that whole company. People started paying attention to the workers they'd always ignored. The security guards, the cleaners, the cafeteria staff. They started saying hello, learning names, having conversations. One day, about a year after everything happened, James was walking through the lobby when he saw a security guard helping a young woman with a computer problem. The guard was showing her something on her laptop, explaining it patiently. James stopped. "I didn't know you knew about computers, Robert." The security guard looked up, surprised that the CEO knew his name. "Oh, yes, sir. I studied IT in university back in Nigeria. Couldn't get a job in the field here, so I do security work. But I still love technology." James felt something twist in his chest. How many talented people had he walked past every single day without seeing them? How many Roberts and Daniels and Roses were there in the world, full of gifts nobody recognized? "Would you be interested in joining our IT department?" James asked. "We're always looking for good people." Robert's eyes went wide. "Sir, are you serious?" "Completely serious," James said. Talk to Daniel Patterson tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. That's how it started. One conversation led to another. The company began looking at all their employees differently. They started a program where anyone, regardless of their current position, could apply for training in other departments. Cleaners became accountants. Security guards became programmers. Administrative assistants became managers. The company culture transformed. It became a place where people felt seen, valued, where your current circumstances didn't limit your future possibilities. 2 years after that terrible night when everything almost fell apart, Sterling Solutions was named one of the best companies to work for in the entire country. Not because of the salary, though that was good, but because people felt like they mattered. Daniel often gave talks at schools and community centers, telling his story. And he always said the same thing. I'm not special. I'm just someone who got a chance. Somewhere in your classroom, in your neighborhood, there's another kid like me. Someone with talent nobody sees. Be the person who sees them. Be the person who gives them a chance. Rose would sometimes join him, and she'd tell parents, I know what it's like to be tired, to work 3 jobs and still barely make rent. But I never let my son think his dreams were impossible. Even when I couldn't buy him a computer, even when I couldn't afford university, I told him he could learn. He could grow. He could become someone. Your kids are watching how you handle struggle. Show them that circumstances are temporary, but dignity and hope are forever. Their words changed lives. Parents started believing in their children differently. Teachers started noticing the quiet kids in the back of the class. Employers started looking past resumes to see the person underneath. James started a foundation that provided scholarships to young people from low-income backgrounds. Not just money for school, but mentorship, internships, real opportunities. He named it the Second Chances Foundation, because that's what everyone deserves. A second chance. A moment when someone finally sees them. 5 years after that night, James stood in his office looking out at London. The same view he'd had when his world was falling apart. But everything was different now. There was a knock on his door. Daniel walked in, now 25 years old, more confident but still humble. Still kind. Got a minute? Daniel asked. Always, James said, smiling. Daniel pulled out his phone and showed James something. Look at this message I just got. It's from a girl who went through our training center 3 years ago. She just got accepted to Oxford University for computer science. Full scholarship. James felt his throat tighten with emotion. That's incredible. There are 50 more stories just like hers, Daniel said quietly. 50 lives changed because you gave one kid a chance. No, James corrected. Because your mother raised you right. Because you had the courage to help someone who'd never noticed you before. I just opened a door. You showed everyone what was possible. They stood together, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, someone was having the worst day of their life. Someone was feeling invisible, forgotten, worthless. But maybe they'd hear this story. Maybe they'd remember that miracles are real. You know what I learned from all this? James said. The people we overlook, the ones society forgets, they're not invisible because they don't matter. They're invisible because we're not really looking. And when we finally open our eyes, when we finally see them, everything changes. For them, yes. But also for us. Daniel nodded. My mom always said that everyone we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. The least we can do is be kind. Actually see them. Your mother is a wise woman, James said. I'm lucky you both walked into my life. We're all lucky, Daniel replied. Because we found each other when we all needed it most. And that, my friends, is the real miracle of this story. Not the technology or the money or the success. The miracle is that when one person chose to really see another person, when one person decided to trust someone the world had overlooked, everything changed. James found hope when he had none. Daniel found opportunity when doors had been closed his whole life. Rose found dignity and recognition for the sacrifices she'd made. And everyone who heard their story learned that the person who might change your life could be standing right in front of you, waiting for you to finally see them. So I'll leave you with this question. Who in your life right now are you not really seeing? Who have you walked past 100 times without noticing? Because that person, that invisible soul who nobody pays attention to, they might be the miracle you've been waiting for. And you might be the miracle they've been praying for too. That's the truth that Daniel, Rose, and James learned that night in London. And it's a truth that could change your life, if you're brave enough to really see the people around you. Are you ready to open your eyes?